which actually is so closely tied into feedback, isn't it? Which would be another comms sort of superhero skill set, where you have to acknowledge in the expectations sort of conversation that this is a two-way thing. We can then have an ongoing mechanism where we go, I'm going to seek feedback on a continual basis to make sure that that understanding is there.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Rob.
Hi, I'm Ricky.
And today we are talking about communication. It's the final of a 4-part mini-series around the topic. And specifically today, the question is, how can you become a communication superhero? Because, I mean, in this whole series, Ricky, we've explored many issues on the topic of communication. And, this was an idea of yours, which I really sort of tuned into straight away. Well, do you know what? How could it be so good at communication that you could play that tune that you just played and become a superhero?
I can't remember which one it is. I always get Star Wars and Superman confused which one's which.
And that was a good meld, but never mind. It's a superhero type thing.
Yes, that was the intention.
So, let's maybe a starting point is to refresh us a little bit on what are the things that we have touched on so far, the different issues around this topic of communication.
Well, I think for me, communication is one of those things that it's so easy to get right, yet we find so many ways to get it wrong. And there's process, there's systems, and you can provide all of those things, but ultimately it comes down to people. And it's about, do they have the skills? Do they have the knowledge? And have we got the right behaviors around this, the right mindset attached to this? And I think that then plays out in some of the challenges that we've uncovered. Right. And by no means is this an exhaustive list, of course, but you go, are we clear about why this is important? Do we agree expectations? Are we listening, or are we actively listening? Are we present in the moment? Do we have robust feedback loops? So, and for me, a feedback loop isn't a one way, you've done this, you've done that, you've done the other. It's a conversation. It's about allowing some right of reply. It's about exploration and testing rather than just boom, there you go, off you go. Do we have communication processes that are efficient, or are we aspiring to be effective? And what I mean by that is you can push communication as much as you want, but effective communication is really different in that, is that where people actually understand, trust, feel engaged, feel included, feel like they have a say, as opposed to going, no, you're just being told, off you go.
Sure.
And do we balance the amount of information that we share? I've got all of this that I need to tell you, and I need to tell you today, and you need to read it today so I can at least satisfy myself I've done my bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
How on earth am I supposed to consume the sheer weight of information that's in any organization, and more importantly, do something relevant and real with it?
Yes.
Because it's just, I remember my corporate world. I spent that many days, months, just reading stuff that somebody else wanted me to look over for them. And you go, I ain't got the time. I've got a team. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what a list. So, I think, if we're going to sort of put on our cape, or, is superhero a whole costume or just a cape? Doesn't much matter.
Oh,
but
for
if
me,
we're
it's the whole costume. And,
the whole thing, right?
I think if
Underpants
you
on the
talk,
outside, perfect.
Yeah, and if you talk to our colleague Graham, he's probably got them in an array of sizes.
He probably has, and colours. So if we were to be a communication superhero, what are the sorts of things that we could do then to make sure that we can actually behave and get better at some of those things that you've called out?
So for me, it starts with clear expectations.
Okay.
So, if we want to be effective communicators, and I think we all do, given that, most clients that we work with, their people tell us we want better communication. Well, we've all got to get involved in that.
Yes.
But with clear expectations, employees can understand their role, their responsibilities. That's going to reduce misunderstandings, and above all, it's going to build this more trustful relationship
Right.
with their leadership and management. But for me, it's about going, if you know what you expect of me and I know what I expect of you, we can come together and agree how we're going to let each other know when we fall below the line.
Right.
And it's that for me is the ultimate test whether we're getting this right. Because if I feel able to sit down and go, Rob, we said we do this. Well, I think like this has happened and that's not helpful for me. And you go, you know what? Never realised. I'm really sorry. Let's move it
Yes.
forward.
Absolutely. Which actually is so closely tied into feedback, isn't it? Which would be another comms sort of superhero skill set, where you have to acknowledge in the expectations sort of conversation that this is a two-way thing, that you are entitled to have expectations of me as I am entitled to have expectations of you. To your point about making them clear, we can then have an ongoing mechanism where we go, I'm going to seek feedback on a continual basis to make sure that that understanding is there, and also to give feedback if something either has fallen below the line or something else needs to be changed or altered. So, regular communication allows for that constructive feedback to be in place that everybody can benefit from. And I think, from a sort of a leader's point of view or a manager's point of view, it enables a recognition really that there is contribution given by the employee and that contribution can be spoken about. It's going to have an impact on morale. It's going to have an impact on engagement and somebody feeling that actually what they are doing is pertinent and relevant.
I totally agree. I think we know we're winning
Mm,
when feedback is delivered up and down and across.
right.
There's no, authority boundaries or anything like that. And we
Catch people
catch
in,
them
yeah.
doing the right things, the expected things, not actively seek to catch them out, because that
Sure.
doesn't necessarily foster that openness and trust that we talked about. So,
Absolutely.
you know,
Okay.
feedback is probably the one area where I think, the superhero can really make a transformational difference in their team.
Yes. No, agreed. And you've just mentioned open and honest there in terms of communication. So that speaks to transparency, does it not?
Absolutely. And I think, for me, let's absolutely be clear about what we're trying to achieve, what are the company goals, what are the challenges we're trying to overcome, how do we get stuff done,
Mm,
how decisions get made, who's responsible for them, and because they're often the hidden pieces of knowledge that people go, well, I know what I need to do, but I have no idea how I'll get it done. And you go, well, if we can break down some of those internal barriers, some of those potential, mythical obstacles that actually, if they pick the phone up and ask somebody, they'd probably tell them.
right.
Um, and that starts to create this open culture. It creates a sense of inclusion. We're in it together, because we're all aiming towards that shared purpose, those common goals that we're all trying to achieve.
Right. So another one I think to talk about here is actually being a communications superhero, concentrating on it so that we can be really good at it in the organization is going to help us with resolving conflicts too. So we're not pretending that conflicts are going to disappear because they're always going to be in place. But improved communication skills can enable us to get to the root of conflict quicker and be more constructive in the resolution of conflict. We may even, over time, if we're getting expectations right and feedback right and being transparent, actually reduce the scale of conflict and reduce perhaps the emotional attachment to conflict. But most teams that we work with, conflict needs to be seen as healthy conflict because maybe it's just a disagreement around how we're going to get something done. But actually, if we are looking at this through the lens of we can resolve some conflicts quicker, then we may be able to prevent issues escalating. And of course, that's going to have a massive impact on trust not being damaged. But our superhero band here is do you know what? Let's make sure that we don't get into conflict that does not get resolved, and we are enabling people to move forward much quicker and get a higher level of understanding.
You made a really good point in there that this is about healthy conflict. Some conflict is good.
Mm,
Some conflict causes disruption, and by disruption I mean in thought patterns,
right.
in the way that we do things, challenging some stuff. Because if I've just spent, and I did, by the way, I spent months building a point of sale system for the mortgage sales guys
Hmm.
in one of my former careers, and we got to a point, we'd engage people along the way, but by nowhere near enough. And then we launch it, and they're going, this don't work, this don't do
Hmm.
this don't do it. And I'm going, yeah, it does, you just need to use it differently. And they're going, so all of this conflict, and I got this endowment effect because I'd worked really hard to create this, what I thought, this beautiful system, and they're effectively calling my baby ugly. And actually I needed to go, you know what, let's start from, where's their intent? Their intent is to challenge, is this right? And of course nothing's perfect first time out. I don't think things are perfect all the time. we
No.
we accept and normalize some of the weaknesses perhaps in certain things, and you go, I know that I could have been better at allowing them
Mm.
to really voice their concerns, whereas actually it became a conflict because I was so wedded and connected to this thing I created, not
Right.
on my own with lots of people, but and then people are attacking it, and you go, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
So I think absolutely healthy conflict, one that is driven to creating the right outcome for everybody, i.e. the organization and the customer experience predominantly
Yes.
in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we're in the, if you like, subject area of communication and things that can get in the way of communication and how to be better at communication, one interpretation of conflict in this instance is precisely the fact that the communication is at fault, that we didn't get it right in the first place. People have misinterpreted things. They've formed assumptions or opinions about things. And that has then escalated into an emotional response around that, which is where the conflicts come from. So,
Definitely.
it might be that the root cause in all of this is, yeah, but did we communicate that effectively in the first place? Did we give people the opportunity to be involved in it to the extent that they can get the understanding that they need, so that we're all on the same page right from the outset?
Well, my start point with that is my learning from that particular example I shared
Mm,
is to take from a Michael Jackson track. You start with the man in the mirror, or
right.
person in the mirror, to go, what could I have done differently here? And
Mm,
I recognise there was certainly some areas, to your point, around what did I not do that could have made this easier.
right. Right. Okay. So all of what you've just described in there caused me to also think about another point that we wanted to raise here, which is around engagement and involvement. So, again, part of the superhero job description must be about employee involvement, right?
Well, absolutely, and I don't believe you can be a communication superhero unless there is engagement
Mm,
with others, and that others might be your employees, it might be your customer base, it might be stakeholders that are
yeah,
involved in delivering.
suppliers, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, anybody who can affect the likelihood or the successful outcome of your goal, you
Hmm.
need to engage them. But if we start with our people, we need to create with, can we give them a voice where they can share their opinions, good, bad, or indifferent? You know, who says we're right? Who says
Mm,
we've got the right perspective here? And if we give our employees the opportunity and actually create the environment where they can do that to challenge, they're going to feel more ownership. They're going to feel more engaged in the organizational success. They're going to take pride in their work, and you're likely to see discretionary effort increase. And
yes.
and if they're not involved, then they're just kind of people doing stuff, and won't necessarily be that bothered in the outcome because they're not connected to it. Our
Sure.
job is to connect them to the outcome. That means that the quality of end product or service that we deliver is so much better. In fact, we did an interview in another podcast that we do, which is launching soon, called Leading to Here, and he said my mantra is really simple: I look after my people, they'll look after my clients, and that will take care of the business. And you go, that's so
Spot
simple.
on. Yeah.
Because actually the people that can influence his client experience are his people. And if we get the client experience right, the business benefits are going to be so much better, because they're going to talk about us, they're going to buy more, they're going to engage with us more. And it's just a win-win strategy. Whereas all too often, some companies might miss that step,
Yes.
and miss the part their employees play in that journey.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because the one element of the description that you gave a few minutes ago caused me to think about alignment with values. You were sort of connecting people with what the purpose is, enables us to then go, well, this is absolutely in the center ground of being a communications superhero, because clear communication of the company's mission and values helps even employees to connect with the organization's purpose or the team's purpose, or what am I doing this for? Enabling people to actually have a clear understanding of the why is fundamental to all of this as well.
I totally agree. I think what we do, what is it? Simon Sinek always talks about: start with the why, then he talks about the how, then he talks about the what. And you go, how we do it is part of our values. This is how we go about doing it. We might, make computers, we might deliver, consultancy services, behavioral change stuff like we do. We might provide financial services. It doesn't matter. But why we exist and how we do it, that's absolutely our point of difference in a competitive environment.
So just a quick summary then about a superhero blueprint or a superhero job description: clear expectations, feedback loops, being transparent, thinking about how we can resolve conflict by communicating far more effectively and early. Employee involvement and alignment with values are all things that can enable us to make communications more effective in the workplace.
My sense is you make just a few moves in the right direction on the needle in some or all of them,
Yeah.
and it will be amazing the impact that it'll have.
Right. And I guess, and this is probably a superficial thing to say, but not to wait for somebody else to become the comm superhero, for us all to start being, how much of a superhero can I be today from the communications point of view? Because, and you've raised this point a number of times before, it's down to all of us. It's not us standing back, I was going to say, and waiting for somebody else to do it. It's us taking a role in it, because we're all involved.
Don't wait. Get on with it.
Yeah. True story. That is the fourth part of what I suspect is going to be an extended series on communication, because there's so much to talk about.
Oh, yes. And of course, we'd really value your feedback and comments on the series. Please share them with us. What have we missed? What would you have added? What would you have said that was different? So please feel free to give us your feedback and insight, and look out for future podcasts coming up soon.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.